Good morning. So behind me, you'll see that I just got my quote wall put in at my home office. And one of the quotes back there is one of my favorites, and it's, "If you've never been hungry, you'll never be full." And that means so much to me. This morning, I'm going to be talking about my relationship with my grandparents and what grandparents mean to me. My counselor told me a few years ago that I would keep coming in and I would say, when I'm a grandparent, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to be the best grandparent out there. And I think for me, the reason, because she kept asking, why do you keep living in the future instead of living in the moment? And grandparents, in my opinion, are extremely important. And I just don't know growing up if I had the best experience that I could have, which I'm sure is most of your guys' story. My grandparents growing up would fight constantly. All I remember is separate rooms, cursing at each other, slamming doors. Holidays were awful. My mom grew up Jehovah's Witness, so we didn't really celebrate too many holidays, but when we did, they always ended in, like I said, fighting, slamming doors, things like that. Growing up, I remember skydiving with my grandpa. And one time I picked my grandpa up so that we could go to skydiving, I don't remember, a few hours away from Santa Rosa. And I honked to have him come out to the car, and we were driving together. And my grandma comes to the front door in a panic, screaming out. And for some reason, it always reminds me of like a Throw Mama from the Train movie scene. And she goes, "Bob, buddy, you can't leave without getting me my drugs. Better have me my drugs." And and by the way, it probably didn't go down exactly like that, because that's not how my grandma completely sounded, but it's what I remember as a child. And I'll never forget my mouth just dropping to the floor and looking at her just wide-eyed, thinking, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. And my grandpa was mortified. He looked at me and just said, all I remember is him saying, "Just go, let's go." And my grandma didn't get her drugs that day. I remember she used to have this dresser that we used to pull up when we would be in her room, and we would see white powder all over. But again, growing up as a young child, I didn't know what that was. I had no idea. I had this false perception of the type of person that my grandparents were. I also told my brother the other day, for some reason, one of the memories that sticks very, very faintly or fondly in my, not fondly, just sticks out in my head, is being a young child and being in her car and her smoking cigarettes, and me just dying of cigarette smoke in the back. All the windows were up. It was just awful. I just felt like I wanted to throw up. And I said, "Grandma, is there any way you could put out your cigarette?" And she said, "No. When you're an adult and you can make your own decisions, and if you choose not to smoke in your car, then that's your choice." And I, again, have no idea why those types of memories pop up in my head. When I met my husband, he came from a different family than I did. He didn't talk about his family much, but I know that he didn't have a lot of the experiences that I had. Well, when I finally was able to bring him to my grandparents' house, I was really excited. I was excited for the guy that I met. I was excited for the type of person he was. And more importantly, I was excited to, in a scary way, I was excited to introduce him to my grandparents. So I brought him to the door. We went inside the house, and my grandma and grandpa were sitting out in the backyard where they had a glass table and there were 4 chairs. And my grandma and grandpa were at 2 sets of the chairs. And I had walked Gerald into the back, and he sat down on the chair, and we were young and in love, so I sat on his lap, very excited to introduce him to my grandparents. And my grandma used to have this amazing laugh. Like, it was, you knew she was there by her laugh. And I must have said something to make her laugh, and she goes, ah. And when she did this, I noticed, which my husband noticed, white powder all in her nose and out of her nose. And I just remember, and the memory is just so in my head, I remember when I was sitting on my husband's lap, I was mortified, because this was, in my opinion, one of the most normal people in my family that I could introduce my husband to. So I remember sitting on his lap and just squeezing his legs, hoping he didn't leave me, right? Hoping that he didn't think that my family was so weird that he just couldn't be part of that long term for his own future. And I remember wondering in a very small way, like, do you think maybe he thought she just had like a powdered sugar fight? I think I'm just joking on that, but because there were so many different thoughts that were running through my head. But for me, again, all I remember doing is squeezing my husband's legs, thinking, don't leave, don't judge me, please. I'm not like this. This isn't what you're marrying into. Like, we'll start our own life. We'll be extremely normal. And we left, and I don't remember how long we stayed, because the rest of that day was just a blur to me after that. But when we left, I remember looking at him and saying those exact words, like, please don't leave. Please don't judge me. This isn't what we're going to create for our family. And, you know, I said in the other video that sometimes having a path that all you know is bad is better than having something that was a good example, because you have, in my opinion, much more of a desire to know where you could go if you don't get your life straight. And what I don't ever want to be like. So I tell you guys this because for me, grandparent relationships are so important to me. And my children, I mean, my dad, they've never ever met, so that's sad. My mom does have a relationship with my youngest one, Olivia. If you ask Olivia, she's the funniest and the best person in the world. They don't have a relationship with one of their other grandmothers. The other set is across the United States and doesn't have too much of a relationship with them as well. And what my counselor always reminds me is some people grow up and never want to be the grandparents that I envision in my head. I envision time with them, those moments with them, the traditions with them, the things that I honestly can't wait to make those memories with my grandchildren. I always tell Izzy I'm not ready to be a grandma. I'm way too young, even though he'll be 21 next month. I'm way too young to be a grandma. But when I do have the opportunity to be blessed with grandchildren, they're going to be my pride and joy. I tell my financial advisor all the time, I'm working now really hard, not only to enjoy and live the life we have, but so that I can make sure to afford a place where my 3 children may end up. I heard a quote the other day that said, presence over presence. Presence with a C over presence with a T. And one of my children's grandparents, they send gifts every Christmas. And I honestly wish I could be in front of them and shake them and say, they don't want your gifts. They don't. They want you. They want to be part of a world where they know having those special moments. And it doesn't mean that you have to pick them up from school once a week, even though I can't wait for those kind of things. It means those special moments with them, the never missing something important to them, being here for Grandparents' Day if that's an opportunity for them. There was one more thing that I really wanted to try to get out in this video, and for some reason I'm drawing a blank. But again, for me, grandparents are extremely important, and I'm sure throughout these videos I'll share lots of small examples of what I had growing up as grandparents, and again, the type of grandparents that I want to be. But to me, if you've never been hungry, you'll never be full means if you don't know and have a strong desire of what you want to be, it's hard to have that fulfilled. So I'm thankful that I have dreams and visions and desire to be an incredible grandparent. And I hope that if anything, presence over presence sticks with you guys, and grandchildren don't care for the presence with a T as much as they care for the presence with a C. So choose joy today, and I'm excited to share another small video with you guys later this week, and hopes that, again, I could bring some sort of change to your guys' life, and hope you can understand where I've come from. Thanks so much.